there's just a few more hours left, and I want to bring this to you, and then I got tons of gameplay footage to go along with this. This is like the LMG god here. It's a little different variety of things. It's not exactly, perfect per se, but playing it right, it's actually beastly, and this just more shows how versatile the builds are in the division, how you can mix and match and still concoct a perfect build for these type situations, especially early on in the early game of Division 2 before you get to in-game, when it goes with the just level 8 and of course the brand sets. But enough of me jibber-jabbering, let's hop right into it. As you can see, it's a mosh pit of sorts. We'll start with the weapons first, and then we'll go over the reasoning why and behind all of these things.
Please register at the main desk.
So first we have the military P416, 10.6k base damage. It has accurate on it, which gives you 15% accuracy. In the optics, we have a reflex sight that gives you plus 10% crit hit damage, and then minus 15% accuracy. So since it has the accurate baked into it, I'm only losing 5% accuracy. That's what makes this particular optics mod a well-suit fit, especially if you're stacking crit chance along with the crit damage. And then we have the light extended 5.56 magazine, plus 30 rounds for just 10% rate of fire minus. So it actually comes in handy. Yeah, that 10% ain't much due to just the low RPM as it is. So, basically, you're only losing like 50 in the RPM, which doesn't really make any bit of difference or significance. Now, if you're running such as this type magazine, let's say with like an MP7, to where there is maybe a little bit more of significance when it comes to the RPM, like 1,000, then you got 10% of that is 100. But still, even 100 is really not that bad of a trade-off because, with less RPM, then you're going to have more stability along with that. And speaking of which, the long underbarrel rail plus 10% crit hit damage, and then, of course, 15% minus in the reload speed. Which is, once again, if you're stacking crit chance and crit damage, then this is one of the ways to go. Now let's move on to the God LMG. It's just a blue, it's not a purple, but it is 14.3k base damage, damage to targets out of cover, plus 7%. So that makes it even more deadly and potent. And its baked in talent is extra, plus 20% magazine capacity. Now moving on to its mods, we have the long optics rail plus 25% optimal range, and then of course we only lose 5% crit hit damage. In my opinion, that's a good trade-off. And then of course we have the ammunition belt plus 25% reload speed, and then of course we have negative 15 rounds. But since we already have the plus 20% magazine capacity, that puts us at 120, since the M60 comes with 100 rounds, it's a fairly good trade-off just for that extra 25% reload speed. And then, of course, we have the underbarrel, plus 10% crit hit damage, and then minus 15% reload speed. So all in all, we're still getting a 10% buff in our reload speed. So all in all, it worked out. Didn't mean to back out, sorry about that. But if you decide to go with such as the CTAR, it has a much higher rate of fire, but then again, you're doing considerably a lot less damage. That's why my go-to is the military P416. And then, of course, we have the police M4, which is a little bit stronger than the CTAR, but significantly less in the RPM category. So with just those right there, the military P416, in my opinion, it would be the go-to best overall. And when it comes to LMGs, you have the classic RPK, which is, as you can see, the base damage is considerably lower, but you have a lot higher RPM. And of course, this one has Allegro, plus 10% rate of fire, and then of course, Ignited, deal plus 10% weapon damage to burning enemies. So let's say if you have like the burst seeker mines, or just also the chem launcher to set them on fire, then you'll get an additional plus 10% bonus damage onto that, which comes out to about 11.2k. But still, compared to the M60, the M60 is the go-to of the LMGs. And of course, see, I have another one here as far as the military L86, a little bit higher in the base damage, and this has also Allegro on it, which gives the plus 10% rate of fire. Pretty decent if you want a more of an assault rifle when accompanied, with certain gear pieces. If you don't like the belt-fed, 100 rounders, but those extra bullets in that magazine really do come in handy. But anyways, let's move on to the gear. First, let's start out with one of the key components of this, which is the Petrov Defense Group brand set. And I only have one of those due to the simple fact of the plus 10% LMG damage. That's the only reason why I wanted that. And its attributes are 294 skill power, 5% crit hit damage, and an additional 2.5% weapon damage. Now, we'll go over the other ones that are singled out, such as the Ferris AB chest. And the only reason why I have this is because my secondary is an assault rifle, and that's just for the 10% assault rifle damage. Now, let's move on to the Providence defense. You get skill power, 8% health, and an additional 5% weapon damage. But if you were going such as like an all crit build, then you would want to go with the D and H and stack 3 pieces of those, whereas where I have the Providence defense, and then that way you get the crit hit damage and the crit hit chance. But I'm more into, as far as when it comes to LNG, is just that heavy raw base damage. And this actually worked out really well, as you'll see in the gameplay video, and that link will be in the description below. But anyways, start with these. And these attributes, we have 11% cooldown reduction and 18% hazard protection. And that hazard protection is anything between, grenades, fire, anything along that. So when you constantly get spammed with grenades or seeker mines, then just that measly 18% does help out. Moving on to the gloves. In its attributes, we have 2094 health, and then plus an additional 4% assault rifle damage. Now, moving on to the third and final piece, which is the holster, and then we get 2792 in health, and then, of course, 2792 health on a kill. So whether it be, trying to clear out NPCs in the dark zone or PvPing, then both come in really, really handy. But like I said, you can mix and match. And let's say, I just want to primarily go with nothing but LMGs. Well, look no further. I can always put on another Petrov, so that way I get 15% turret skill power. But all in all, I don't really think that would be the necessarily the exact way to go. But like I said, there's plenty of different things you can mix and match. If you're going for more a crit chance build, as you can see on the superior gear, we have vital health increased by 20%. So that way, if I wanted to be a little more tanky as far as in my health pool, then I can easily switch to this and have a little bit more crit chance. And then plus the additional 10% cooldown reduction. But also, I was hoping to get in with another Petrov chest piece. And see, this one has an additional 20% in health. So if I wanted to go that route, then I could switch these two here and then immediately boost my health up to 16,460. But that's not necessarily the way I wanted to go. I wanted to stick, with something that lines up with my current build. And I wish I had a, such as a Ferris AB or a Petrov defense with this particular baked-in mod or attribute, as you can say, perk, which is, as you can see on the screen, hardened, plus 10% in armor. You can go a little bit more tankier. As you can see, it boosts my armor up to 133,000. But, whichever is according to your playstyle, you can mix and match, and this is just a crash course, more or less, just like the other 2 build videos on my channel from the private beta, just going to show the things that you can mix and match depending on your playstyle. Even if you can't find the particular right pieces that you want, you can still mix and match to try to find the exact ones that you want. You can be, such as a little tankier, and then plus you lose a little bit of damage. But let's just say for the giggles, I wanted to be a lot more tankier and absorb a lot more damage. Because let's face it, so far the armor is more important than your overall health, but yet you don't want to have minimal health just to this certain aspect. Once your armor is gone, your health is what's going to rely on, that you're going to rely on in order to get in cover, so that way you can pop an armor plate or allow your drone to heal up your armor before getting completely pushed upon. So health is important, but just not as important as your armor. Your armor is going to take the most blunt force trauma. So the armor value is key. But as you can see, I dropped to 13.7, which is an acceptable loss. That's only 700 damage loss, but yet look at all the additional armor that I'm gaining. And yes, now I have 4 pieces of Providence, so you can mix and match. But let's say you don't want to go the AR route, then you can easily come over here and put on another Neptune, and then switch it out for, let's say, just a regular rifle. You can go with the classic M1A, as you can see there, does 25.5k, no attachments or anything. You can go with the competition LAR-15, which has a higher RPM, just a little, well, not a little, but a lot less in base damage. And of course, the military MK-17, the 28.5k. So if you're more into something a little more long range, and then use your LMG for the mid-range and up close, then by all means you can mix and match it this way. So that way you have the 3 Providence defense that gives you the skill power, the health, and the weapon damage, and then of course the 2 Neptunes, so that way you get the 10% rifle damage, but then again you get a 7.5% spike in total armor. So I can see my armor shot up to 142,000. So if you want to just stick with LMGs and rifles, then this would be the way to go for your build. You just need the 1 Petrov for the 10% LMG, and then you stack on 2 for the 10% rifle damage and the total armor by way of the Overlord armaments. And then of course you have the 3 Providence for skill power, a little additional health, and then of course that additional 5% weapon damage. So that way you can stack all that weapon damage on one and not have to necessarily rely on crit chance and crit damage. So the build versatility is, or yeah, I think that's how I pronounce it. I didn't major in any kind of English class, so don't you know, burn me too bad in the comments. But you know, all the builds are versatile in the aspect of no matter what you can find in the DZ or the LZ, there's always something you can concoct and build upon without having exactly all the right sets, you know, lined up, 3 this and 3 that. I mean, you can go 3, 2, and 1 like I have it here. You can go 2, 2, and 2. I mean, the possibilities are endless. But anyways, I rambled on enough. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've been informative as far as more or less a crash course on what to expect here in 2 weeks for those that played both private and the open beta. Yeah, we're going to have to do it all over again, but at least this way, for those that haven't played, then you are more informative for when you do hop on the game and start grinding up when you're in those early levels of the story mode, that you can still venture into the dark zone and still reign supreme with builds such as this, but also use it in the PvE side and also do a significantly amount of hardcore damage. And just to go over a little stat sheet, that is the MK-17, 7.5% crit hit chance, 28.5k base damage, 2.6 second reload time, 20% accuracy, 20% stability. Then we got 7.5% all weapons damage bonus, and then of course we have 15% rifle damage bonus with a combined of 22.5%, and then of course we have the 10% LMG damage combined with the 7.5% all weapons damage, which gives me a total of 17.5. So the sky's the limit. The possibilities are endless. And see, as the hazard protection, bleed resistance, blind death, burn, disorient, disrupt, shock, it all goes hand in hand. But anyways, like I said, I rambled on way too much, even more. I hope it's been informative. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you fudging later. Yeah, I'm trying to moonwalk.
Welcome to the base of operations.